Welcome everyone to today's IDDC's event on the topic Reshaping Equity in OPD-iNGO Collaboration, organized by the IDDC Task Group on OPD Partnership. We are very pleased to have you here one day ahead of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Today, our speakers will share practical insights and reflections on building more equitable, meaningful, and sustainable partnerships between OPDs and INGOs. I am humbled to be your moderator today. My name is Susanna Warden, and I am a program advisor at the Norwegian Association of Disabled. And I'm also a co-chair of the IDDC Task Group on OPD Partnership. So I have been very involved in making this webinar happen, and I'm very excited to be here today. To describe my appearance, I am a white woman with short, dark hair, brown eyes, oval-shaped face, and I'm wearing a black shirt with a bright pink blazer. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few housekeeping notes. So this session is being recorded and it will be shared with all the registered participants afterwards. We are using international sign language and it's available throughout the session. We also have live captioning in English. You can turn your captions on by selecting the Zoom toolbar at the bottom. Select captions and then show captions. And during the first half of the session, we are going to spotlight the speaker speaking currently. And then during the panel discussion, we will have all the panelists spotlighted at the same time. And of course, the sign language interpreters will always be spotlighted for you. And now, when it comes to participation, we encourage everyone to participate, but via the chat section. So all the participants' microphones are muted, and we kindly ask you to keep them muted during the presentations. We will have a dedicated Q&A session. Sorry, I should probably spotlight myself. Thank you for that note. Yes, so we will have a dedicated Q&A session from 2:40 to 3 p.m. CET, or that is 4:40 to 5 p.m. EAT, East African time. And if any question comes to your mind during the session as we talk about different topics, don't just think that you will remember during the Q&A. When the question pops, just write it into the chat section. But please, to make it easier for me as the moderator, just preface the question with the actual word question in all caps. That will be helpful. And if you would like to share any thought or reflection and not really a question, just write it directly in the chat without any prefix. If we have a nice discussion going on in the chat, we are very happy for that as well. So thank you all for being here. And with that, we are ready to begin. We will begin with a note from Frederick Oko, who is the Co-Chief and Transformation Executive Director of ADD International and the board member of IDDC. I am going to spotlight him as we speak and take my spotlight off. Yes, please, Frederick, you are welcome to speak.
Thank you so much. My name is Frederick Oko, co-CEO at AD International and Vice Chair at IDDC. So I just want to take this opportunity to welcome you all to this webinar, which is important as it becomes just before the International Day for Persons with Disability being celebrated globally tomorrow, so that you are spared your moment to just listen and hear a fantastic group of panelists from Uganda talking about OPD and how we can engage and making the engagement between OPD and OPDs and INGOs equitable. And this is really what we stand for as the International Disability and Development Consortium, which is a grouping, for those who don't know, broadly is a grouping of civil society organizations coming together around a common objective, which is to promote inclusive international development and humanitarian action, but with a special focus on full and effective enjoyment of human rights by all people with disability. So really it's about how do we ensure that persons with disability, wherever they are, they're enjoying the human rights fully. Our activities are defined and run by members through thematic task groups. Partnership is at the heart of what we do as IDDC, as well as dynamic internal collaborations we have built up as a trustworthy reputation among disability organizations, donors, experts, and many which are close partners. So today, this webinar is organized by our OPD task group, as it's been alluded to, for which I am a liaison person to the IDDC board, being a vice chair at IDDC board. And as of March this year, IDDC
Okay, we are experiencing a bit of
is
troubles with the connection. Sorry, Frederick, it is breaking at the moment. Let's wait a bit. Okay.
And individual
Okay, we are experiencing some troubles with the connection.
So if you are
Sorry, Frederick, can you hear us? And now Frederick's video has also frozen. Sorry, Frederick, can you hear us or not? We might have lost Frederick. Can you hear us? Okay. Unfortunately, we can. Oh, are you back?
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you please repeat the last maybe 2 minutes because we lost you, unfortunately.
Okay. So I was saying this webinar is organized by the OPD task group, for which I am the liaison person to the IDDC board. And as of March 2025, this year, IDDC has membership of 36 organizations and 6 individual members. And as members of IDDC, we are committed to working with OPDs in a mutually respective manner, learning, co-creating, and supporting initiatives that are a priority to the overall disability movement globally. And so if there's anyone who is within this webinar and isn't a member, either OPD or INGO, that is interested in joining IDDC, please reach out to us so that you are told of ways through which you can join up and become as part of IDDC family. And we ask that those that are yet to also who are members and they're yet to join the task group, OPD task group, to do so so that there are opportunities for us to learn and collaborate together and improve our working relationships to make them equitable and to support disability movement globally. So thank you so much for making the time today to attend. And I wouldn't want to be the person who blocks the conversation that is coming after me. So really, it's just to a honor to really be able to welcome you, and on behalf of IDDC, say thank you for sparing this moment to hear about the wonderful conversation that is becoming coming up through this webinar. Susanna.
Thank you very much, Frederick. So now we are going to be joined by Chisomo Daisy, who wears many hats. She's an economist, a strategist, an investor, but also a DEI expert. I do plan to spotlight her, but Chisholm, can you please turn on your camera so that I can spotlight you? And Chisholm is going to set the stage for us to explain the topic of equity. Yes, there you go. And she will have a presentation for us. So thank you so much for joining us, Chisholm.
Thank you for having me. Okay, let me share my screen. One second. Anyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. We do see your browser though.
I'm sure you do. You see a million things open? Yeah, that's my style. What's happening? Okay. Does it look okay now?
No, we still see our browser. It's possible that you have chosen a different window to be shown. You can choose which window you want to show as the screen that you're sharing.
Let's try again.
Yes,
Now?
now we can see the presentation.
Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Chisamudeze. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Black woman. My hair is straightish and wavy. I am wearing a red beret and a black turtleneck dress. I don't know what my face is maybe oval. And yeah, I guess that's all I can explain right now about myself. All right. So I was asked to come and answer three specific questions. Now, to do that, I just want to run through quickly just ideas around diversity, equity, and intersectionality to set the stage, and then I can answer the questions. So when we really think about diversity, we think about demographic identifiers. So things that we are born with or we inherit over time. So things we're born with are things like our gender or our disability, ability, neurodiversity, our age, we can't really change over time. And then there are things around like our secondary identifiers, which are things that we acquire or let go as we move through life. So things that we acquire, things like education, speaking a language, doing yoga, our parental status, or even our military status. So this is kind of like what we think about when we think about diversity. And then when we think about equity, I think oftentimes we confuse equity with equality. Equality is amazing, it's aspirational, but the only way to get to equality is through equity. Now, equality, like we've tried to describe imperfectly, is giving everyone the same platform. I'm expecting them to arrive at this proverbial apple tree branch. It doesn't really work out. I mean, it's nice in practice, but in theory, but in practice, it's not. And of course, equity then is recognizing that we all need different things to arrive at the same point. It's not giving anyone an upper hand over somebody else. It doesn't mean that we have to share our pie and then we have less. It just means that we meet people where they are. Okay. Now, intersectionality. Intersectionality is an analytical framework that was designed by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw to understand how people experience the world through layers of privilege or the lack thereof. Now, what that means is none of us are one thing, none of us have just one identity. That means that we experience the world through multiple layers of identities that we carry. For example, I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a leader, and every experience that I have in life can happen to me at that intersection. So it's sometimes difficult to separate. Am I experiencing this like this because I'm a mother, because I'm Black, because I'm a leader? Or is it for something else? So that's basically the concept of intersectionality to allow us to understand how different people experience the world at the intersection of the identities that they carry. And then to answer the question that I was asked to, I want to put forward just a three-part framework. And this framework looks at identity clarity. So who are you? within what are your values? Context clarity, where are you leading? What is the history, the culture, the pressures, the incentive of where you are? And of course, power clarity looks at what influence do you have, what decisions are yours, what levers can you move. And then with that, I do want to answer the questions I was asked. The first, I think the second question I was asked here, one second, I'm just pulling it up, basically wanted me to look at how can we understand equity and intersectionality in the context of INGOs and OPD in how they collaborate. I think something we should keep in mind is that power is contextual, it's never neutral. Most INGOs control funding, they control narrative, they control visibility, they control reporting frameworks, for example. So equity requires that we acknowledge that there is this asymmetry of power in a sense, rather than pretending that the partnership is equal, when in fact it is not equal because one group has more power than another. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is that lived experience is expertise. It is not an add-on. Oftentimes, INGOs do not have the lived experience of the context that they are operating in. However, they do not value lived experience in the same way as they should. So it is important that especially that OPD is led by people with disabilities, that the people with the experts, with the expertise, with the local context information and the lived experience should actually be prioritized in setting the frames in decision making as well. Decision making must reflect people most affected. Oftentimes, decisions are made by people who are not affected by the challenges or the problems or the solutions that they are trying to create. So it's important to ask ourselves, how are we centering the experiences and the people specifically that will benefit from whatever it is we're trying to create? It's also important to look at resources and how it is redistributed. Not just referenced, right? So equity without referencing is performance. So are we performing inclusion? Are we performing equity? Are we performing real collaboration? And accountability must flow both ways. Oftentimes, accountability flows one way, right? It's the OPDs reporting to the INGOs rather than the INGOs reflecting on how are we actually accountable to the organizations, to the people that we are trying to provide for. In terms of questions that OPDs and INGOs can ask themselves, I think it's important for OPDs to also start reflecting on power. Oftentimes, power has been historically placed in the hands of INGOs. So look at things like, what interest are we centering in this project? Are we centering the interest of our people or our community, or are we centering interest based on where the fund is flowing? Do we have power? Do we have capacity? And do we also have protection to fully participate, or are we performing collaboration and gratitude because we are expected to? Susanna, also keep me on time. I'm not sure how much longer I have, but
No worries, you still have 7 minutes, so it's
okay,
all good.
cool. All right. I think as well that OPDs can ask questions around, are we producing or reproducing the exclusion we are trying to dismantle, right? So are women, are youths, are rural OPDs, are non-dominant disability groups also represented in the work that we are doing? And also asking questions around, what does equitable decision making actually look like for us? So if we remove the power and funding, if we remove the power that has historically disenfranchised us, what does equity actually look like within the work that we do? And of course, also looking at things like, do we have the internal governance and the strength to negotiate fairly? So yes, INGOs have their frames, and they have the resources. But what does it actually look like to negotiate as equal partners? And then for questions that INGOs can reflect on, as well as OPDs can ask INGOs, are things like, how will decisions be made? who has the final authority. And I think clarity is important. Oftentimes, we don't really name power clarity because power clarity requires that we admit that, hey, I'm giving you money, I make the final call. And I think that type of clarity is also quite important to be able to understand, okay, to what degree can we actually impact the kind of change that we want to see? I think it's also important to look at things around budgets. I think, especially when INGOs are involved, we always have to talk about money and budgeting. And what does that mean in terms of how we can actually impact the spaces we want to impact, especially for, say, coming from my perspective, if I'm coming from an INGO perspective and I'm working in a small, say, village in Uganda, I may not really understand the context of what the people on the ground actually need. So, do I have the bandwidth within the cooperation to actually create space for those conversations? And of course, I think conversations around how will success be measured, and also what mechanisms exist to expand the scope of the work and the collaboration that we are doing together. So I guess in summarizing my thoughts around this, I think when we look at intersectionality and equity, we really want to be able to explain. I'm going to stop sharing. We really want to be able to look at what capacity do we have to collaborate on equal footing? What capacity do we have to actually share power? And for people with power, how can we reflect on the power that we have and the responsibility that that brings to us? And then define and design a better way for interacting, even though we might have an upper power, can we level the playing field? So that's basically what I wanted to share in terms of how we look at power and how you can collaborate in spite of the differences in context and power clarity.
Thank you very much, Chisom. We do have 3 minutes left, so I might just put you on the spot
Okay.
and give you one question that we will actually have at the end of the panel discussion. And that is if you could give the OPDs in the audience one tip of, what can they do, what can they take to their office from tomorrow, to make their collaboration with the INGOs more equitable? How can they kind of use their power to move the ladder towards, or the balance towards them?
So we're talking about a situation where the INGOs still control a lot of the finances, right? And okay, right.
That's such an
I
example.
think I think just asking clearer questions and setting expectations. I think oftentimes a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication or power imbalance happens because there is no clarity in what is the expectation in the situation. And I think just clarifying, oftentimes, even by asking questions to INGOs around what does compensation look like? What percentage of the project budgets goes directly to our organization beyond just the projects? Even things around what does it actually mean for them to share power? And then be bold and brave enough to say, this is actually what it means for us. I think it really just starts from that courage, right? Because oftentimes when there is power imbalance on the basis of funding and finances, you really just want to get that fund because your community needs it. But is there room to actually say, hey, listen, let's have a conversation. I know this is what this looks like, but this is actually what we need. Are you open to having this conversation? And I think it just requires courage, right? It's not saying if you don't do it this way, we're not going to work together. It's how can we work better together so you hear what we need. So this is more impactful rather than it being, a checkbox. We do the thing, but at the end of the day, we're struggling. So I really think it comes down to communicating more openly, the same way you would speak to somebody else or a colleague in your organization. You could speak to an INGO who is really interested in sharing power and making things more equitable to say, this is our situation. How can we make it more balanced?
Mm. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chisom, for your contribution and for setting the stage for us. I think we haven't agreed, but we're both wearing some pink. So we have set some dress code. Let's see if others will follow. But yes, thank you so much. And have a lovely rest of the session with us, or if you have to leave us early.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, great. So we have so far heard from Frederick Oko and from Chisamu Daisy. And what is ahead of us is a panel discussion with 5 different panelists, all coming from Uganda, representing OPDs, representing an umbrella OPD and an intermediary organization. Please, the panelists, can you turn on your video so that I can um, spotlight you? Yes, so we have Farouk joining us. I'm looking through the list of panelists. Please turn on your cameras so that we can spotlight you. Okay. Yes, so we have Apollo joining us, as well as, oh, David, your camera went off again. There you are. Yes, Kristen, please, if you could start your video, that would be great. And Michael, I'm struggling to, oh, Michael, there you are. And Kristen as well. Okay, so now the screen is quite full, but it is exciting. Wonderful faces joining us for this panel discussion. So yes, for the next 1 hour, we are going to have a panel discussion with different representatives of OPDs from Uganda. And afterwards, we are going to have a Q&A session for 20 minutes. So again, I repeat myself, if you do have any questions for the panelists as we speak, just write that question into the chat and preface it with the word question, so that I can find it at the end. And if you do have any thoughts you would just like to share, write it in, have a discussion there, so that it's an interactive session. So welcome again to all our wonderful panelists. I would like everyone to introduce themselves. So I am going to call out names. And please keep it short and sweet. I will start with Farouk. Can you please introduce yourself?
Susanna, thank you so much. My name is Farouk Kiza, the Programs Officer at Source of Daniel Union of Persons with Albinism, SNUPA. We are based in Jinja, the eastern part of Uganda. We are into albinism advocacy. Like the first colleagues were introducing themselves. I have black hair, quite an oval face, putting on a SNUPA pinch t-shirt, and yeah, the downbeat you won't see, and I'm excited to be here. Susanna, we appreciate the guidance throughout organizing this particular session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Farouk, for joining us and for upkeeping the dress code, which was not announced, but it just happens to be pink for some of us. So next on my screen is Apollo, please.
Yeah, Susanna and colleagues, my name is Mokasa Apollo. I work with Uganda National Action on Physical Disability, briefly known as UNAPID here in Uganda. And I work as Executive Director. UNAPID is an organization for persons with physical disability. And much of our work, we basically focus on the rights of persons with physical disabilities. We are located along Gayaza Road in Kampala here. And of course, was sent to Kampala, and I'm glad to meet my colleagues. My dressing code, I'm a dark-skinned guy with a all-shaped beards, those who can see. And I'm putting on a kitenji, traditional African wear, blue mixed with brown. And I'm glad to be part of this panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on my screen is David. Please, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Thank you very much, Susanna. It is an honor to speak to you this afternoon in Uganda. Maybe the time setting is different where you are and where others are now. I want to confirm that I am David Nangosi. I work for National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, NUDIPU, as the Program Officer, Human Rights. I do coordinate a number of things here at NUDIP, including being the focal point person for the Convention, the Rights of Persons, Disabilities, and Sustainable Development Goals, and Global Disability Summit commitments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. To confirm your identity, we are going to have to see your ID. I'm just joking.
I am dark-skinned. I am a person with a physical disability. I am putting on a suit. I think this must be, is it navy blue? I think so. I'm not so good with colors.
No.
Yeah, but this must be a navy blue suit. I think so. With a maroon shirt. Yeah, I do think so. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next on my screen is Michael. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Miro Michael. I prefer to be called Miro as my name. I'm a country representative for the Danish Association of Persons with Physical Disability here in Uganda. And I'm a team lead. We are staff of 3 in Uganda, and we are working with 10 national level organizations of persons with disability that we support in terms of leadership, management, livelihood, and advocacy, and disability support. I have short hair, a large face, black, as the word black, with a bright smile. And I'm putting African wear, tinge blue, with some yellow spot in it. And my eyes are squinched, very small, but they can see very far. And I use a wheelchair myself. I'm a person with physical disability. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Mira, and sorry for calling you Michael. It is my favorite name, actually. My son is also called Michael. But last on my screen is Christine. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Achirungi Christine. I'm the Executive Director of Umbrella Cerebral Palsy Network Association, a membership organization of structures or groups of persons with cerebral palsy and their caregivers in Uganda. I'm happy to be here and excited to be part of the panelists. I have cerebral palsy disability, and I think I have a dog face. Putting on a mix and match kitenge, African wear. Yes, that's what I can say.
Thank you very much, Christine. It seems like kitenge is the other dress code for today. So thank you all for your introductions. And without further ado, let's jump straight into questions and the discussion itself. So my very first question goes to Mukasa Apollo. So please, can you tell us how is INGO and OPD collaboration initiated and managed in an equitable manner? And if you can share a real-life example of best practice, that would be great. Sorry, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Susanna. And I will share that perspective of how OPDs and NGOs collaborate in an equitable manner. My practical experience as an organization person with disabilities in Uganda, we approach collaboration with the INGOs. They come in two ways. Basically, look at two ways. But at the most beginning point of this collaboration, most of the times begin with first discuss among ourselves. An OPD like UNAP, we discuss with an NGO, of course, which can come to those spaces and try to discuss what brings you together. What is that mutual interest we have between the two entities, which can really become relevant for the collaboration. Once you discuss that mutual interest, which really brings relevance of collaboration, one other perspective was, which I have from practical experiences, going through the co-creation. Co-creation is you come together and you co-create what you want to do together. You discuss if it is a project idea, if it's a program idea, you sit on the same table, you discuss the ideas, how it's going to be done, who be the role of each other, and how everything's going to be done together. Discuss everything as equal partners, not one superior, one inferior. So through that cooperation, creates room to really understand each other very well, but also creates room for you to amicably agree on what is practical, what is not practical. It reduces that feeling that sometimes INGO bring in practical elements into our contest. But that cooperation enables even that INGO to understand what is practical in the local context, what is feasible, what is not feasible. After the cooperation process has been done, I think that's when in fact now you come to through a process of developing an MOU that binds you together, a memorandum of understanding. What are you going to do together as two organizations, as two NGO, an INGO and an OPD like UNAPID? What are you going to do together as two entities? So that MOU now is the binding document, which binds you each and every part of responsibilities. What is my role as UNAPID? What is the role of their NGO, which are going to work together? What are deliverables? What are your pros and cons? And what are you going to do together as two entities on equal footing, without looking at who is superior and the other. After having an MOU together, signing an MOU together, then you can now start implementing what would be a good proposal, a program, or a proposal for a program or a project in a particular context, in a particular locality. So that's one of the ways how the INGO and OPD like UNAPID can have a collaboration is very equitable, because it creates room for every one of you to understand each other, to agree on standing action points, many action indicators, and agree on correlations between the two of you before you go into your implementation of a program or a project. That's briefly what I can say in line with the equitable collaboration between an NGO and OPD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any real life example of, this kind of co-creation process that you've had with an INGO?
I can first give an example as a speaker. I had a partner here who is running a program with us. I won't mention the partner's name for purposes of confidentiality, but they came to my organization. They wanted us to do a combined program together. It was in areas of inclusive education, livelihoods, and social inclusion. They approached my office. We came together. We discussed what they want to do from us. Of course, I'd known them before, but I knew them from other partners within the disability movement. But I think they picked interest to my organization. So they visited me. The Apollo, we are here. We are so-called A, B, and C. We have seen your strength in the areas of advocacy as an organization, and our program lacks that component of advocacy. So they brought that element to me that they want to see how can work with you to supplement our program in the area of advocacy. So I welcomed the partner. He came and we discussed. I discussed my strength at the organization. They discuss their strengths as a program, as a partner. And we discuss what commonalities brings us together. So having discussed all that together, let alone what was the next phase was to come into how can we develop a joint program together, start developing activities, programs, indicators, and the outcomes together with my organization and that partner, and how my organization can supplement the diverse component of their program. So we combine efforts to discuss and develop ideas. From my experience as UNAPIT, bringing that gap of advocacy into their program. They are more of a service delivery partner. They are focused more on service delivery. They wanted to bring in their point of advocacy. So I brought in aspects of advocacy, how it can strengthen and sustain service delivery, even when the program expires. So with that mutual understanding, mutual discussions, agreements, and then start discussing what ideas can come on the table. That's the cooperation I'm talking about. So discuss the ideas together on the same table. Equal partners, and we agree or disagree. Sometimes we agree sometimes when it came to a mutual agreement. This can work, this cannot work here. Of course, partners come with the spirit complex that I know this idea can work here best here, but also you come with your particular experience as an OPD on the ground. This idea can work here, this idea cannot work here. So until when you agree and then say, okay, we can go this idea. That's equity. Then until when you finally come up with a practical approach you're going to use as the two partners, then from that, you sign an MOU, then you come into a post writing process, and then the program starts. That's when partners come to me, whereby 2 years ago, and now we're moving together with them, implementing the program together, sharing ideas, consulting each other, giving feedback to each other where things have gone wrong, and correcting ourselves, and where things have gone right. We praise ourselves as equal partners in the same direction of advocacy and inclusion. So that's an example I can cite where I've experienced equity in advocacy, and programming, and collaboration.
Thank you very much for sharing this example. It's a very clear example of how setting good expectations at the beginning is a good base to build your house on. And I think funding processes are often the space where equity is tested the most or a lot. And so my next question is for Farouk. For SNUPA, how can funding criteria and application processes be made more inclusive and accessible for OPDs, especially when large donors impose complex requirements?
Thank you so much, Susanna. First of all, I want to state that in Uganda, we have so many OPDs registered, as NGOs, where others are still very small to the level of CBOs. Majority have gone ahead and at least got a registration certificate or permit, courtesy of the organizations that have been supporting some capacity building initiatives in Uganda. And the disability-specific organizations are playing a crucial role in the disability rights and inclusion work in Uganda, though majority of them are resource constrained. Our OPDs, like I said, vary from big to very small. And as a person, I have been at the center of fundraising for SNUPA. And yes, this question on application on the criteria, it comes at the right time. One, majority of the international organizations, they are large donors, and the requirements are a bit big vis-a-vis the capacity of these small organizations, the CBOs, NGOs, yeah. So I will give a few recommendations. One, the international organizations should have some affirmative considerations, especially for organizations or persons with disabilities. For example, they should put in place later requirements. Instead of, especially when dealing with very, very small and emerging organizations, instead of asking for audited books of accounts from, certified private individuals, at least we would consider, for example, a district-based auditor. Yeah, the report from the district-based auditor can well work as the audit. In any way, we can try to make the requirements accessible and easy for organizations or persons with disabilities. And again, some requires a very heavy M&E system, the frameworks. If we could make some affirmative considerations and design really simplified templates, especially for organizations or persons with disabilities. Let me assure you that the work of organizations of persons with disabilities, fits directly into what the government is currently not delivering. And even though we are still small, but it's really imperative for the international organizations to find ways of incorporating into their work these small organizations, such that we give a bigger impact to the most marginalized. Secondly, we can encourage big organizations. Actually, when a big organization is applying for a fund, at least let us task them to at least ensure that they work with at least one of the OPDs representing the marginalized categories. In any way, we shall be one building the capacity of these small OPDs to equally compete at some stage with the rest. One of the key area of consideration, majority of the international donors, their funding amounts are always big. For example, if I look at an application, if I look at a call now, and they say that the minimum amount is $300,000 US, automatically that would be putting me like Snooper out of the picture. So maybe as one of the recommendations, later the donors put out calls, grants in different levels. One suitable for the small OPDs, while the other can be for the bigger OPDs. Like I said, we have a mixture of the big ones and the small ones. And the small ones mainly are into real practical work. So we shouldn't miss them out. The other issue, at times the small OPDs miss out because of the lapse in communication. For example, instead of putting up calls on websites of these international organizations, I think we can make use of organizations, our umbrella organizations, for example, like NUDIPU, yeah, they have the right communication channels to the different OPDs across Uganda. So I think even access to information would be very crucial to ensure OPDs participate. The other issue, and maybe lastly on this,
yes,
if we want to encourage small organizations with no experience in managing, yeah, we can make use of intermediaries, like for example NUDIPU, yeah, and NUDIPU sub grants to the small OPDs, yeah. I think in a way, so many people will be engaged, so many people, different disabilities will be engaged, and I'm sure it will be a plus for the international organizations to make an impact to the lives of persons with disabilities on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you. These were some very, very useful recommendations. I hope people are taking notes, but if not, we are going to share the recording afterwards. So another key piece of the puzzle is how the collaboration approaches are designed. So let's turn to Christine. I have a question for you. How can INGOs shift from top-down practices to genuinely embrace bottom-up approaches? Do you need help to unmute? Just a second. Kristen is having some technical challenges. Sorry, Kristen, are you here with us? Okay, we cannot hear Kristen at the moment. So I think we can maybe jump to the next question. Okay, Kristen, we can see you now. Can you unmute? Yes, I can repeat my question. How can INGOs shift from top-down practices to genuinely embrace bottom-up approaches? Sorry, Kristen, are you there? Okay, it does seem like Kristen is having some technical challenges. So I say we can jump over to the next question and then we can come back to Kristen when she sets up her video once again. And that brings me to Miro. So please, Miro, what are some examples of best practices that intermediaries can apply to improve equity in the OPD-iNGO collaborations?
Okay, thank you, Susanna. Hopefully, okay, so that the name doesn't disturb you. Call me Michael because it's the favorite, so that you're allowed to. Okay, what I could discuss like 3 key areas that the intermediaries could take chance if they are working with organizations of persons with disability. The first area is the inclusion ladder, because most of these OPDs have different stages of interventions and growth that they are having. So rather than having key big things in terms of when you do a due diligence and you're asking big areas that they should have ABCD, which they don't have, it could be better that in your partnership with them, you build their capacities, but at the same time implementing a project. So they go on building on each other until they are able to reach where you want to. Because most of these organizations have dropped organizations of persons with disability because they don't meet certain criteria, and they look at in terms of that. And then also the issue of membership. Most of the organizations of persons with disability are membership-based organizations, not NGOs. So at times the intermediaries look at them as NGOs that have to have high-class board, high-class staff and everything, not forgetting that they're working with the first person with disability at the grassroots. So if they can be mindful of understanding that these are membership organizations that come together to reach a goal, it could be really very good for intermediaries to work on that area. So the second area that the other best example, a best practice that we've also seen is the issue of involving these groups of persons with disability right from the start in the design of the project. So for example, if you are doing a baseline survey or in times when you are designing a project, you really need to understand the needs vis-a-vis the proposal that you are developing. If they're given a chance into that, it's really very good that it builds their capacities and then also they're able to look at. The other area that is also really very important is the need of giving them power to manage themselves. We've seen in partnership with INGO, they usually want to take the lead, and in so doing, they only give you small monies or a percentage in terms of human resource or to pay rent or to implement one activity. So all the powers and all the decisions are made by the intermediary. And then this one only comes as, how do you call it? A first value that I'm working with an organization of persons with disability. But in actual sense, the systems are not being developed and they're being left out. So organizations that we've seen them, giving them an opportunity that they also manage and lead and they're able to have these decisions are really very catered for. And the last one that needs also to be looked at is the issue of, how do you call it? Accessibility and accommodation, reasonable accommodation. Most intermediaries look at a person and they don't look at the missing need in the implementation of the project. So if somebody talks about reasonable accommodation, the intermediaries come and say, oh, your organization is very expensive to work with. So in our budget, we don't have that kind of money. So we have only 15% of the entire budget to look at the administration. So if you're bringing in reasonable accommodation, for example, if I'm blind and I need JAWS in my laptop to do work, it might cost like $1,000. And then somebody, oh, that money could do a lot if it goes to the community. We don't have that kind of money. Yet, I will not reach the community if I don't have JAWS in my work to do the work. So those could be some of the best practices that I've seen some of the intermediaries have taken on. Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you very much for sharing these best practices. They are very useful, all of them. I wonder, Christine, if you are back with us now, so that we can come back to your question. In case your video, are you here with us? Oh, good. You're getting support. Can we hear you?
Hello, Susan.
Yes, hello. Hi. We're happy to have you back. So I did have a question for you, and I will repeat it. How can INGOs shift from top-down practices to genuinely embrace bottom-up approaches?
Okay. For the international NGOs to genuinely embrace down top practices, there is need for shift. And shift, what do I mean? I mean the international NGOs should shift from being implementers to facilitators and enablers. Currently, most NGOs are implementing projects, they are implementing programs. Now, you find that the local actors, including OPDs, are not given the safe space to decide on the priority, to set priorities on how to address the issues that are affecting them. By the time the INGOs comes on board, they have already said they know what to do, and they tell, this is the change we want to see. So you find that we are doing, or the local actors are doing the work on behalf of the INGOs, but not doing the work solve the issues that are affecting them. At the end of it all, there is no sustainability of the impact, because somehow you hear them saying this program belongs to a certain donor or partner, meaning they have not, they don't have the full ownership, because you've already come, you've decided which region you want to go, what kind of issue you want to act on. So you find that really the ownership of the local actors is on the surface, not in reality. So that one is another thing that is affecting. And also if the INGOs really create a safe space to build the capacity of the local actors. Let the local actors set the goals, where they want to be and how. Then the INGOs, let them come to build their capacity. If you want to get there, then I think this is how your system should be, but not you to come. For example, you see that during the monitoring, you find the international partners hiring very, big people to come and monitor the results. Yeah, as in, yes, that is good, but can it be a supporting system? That if these people have done it, how have they done it? Because tomorrow, a local actor will not have the capacity to monitor, to assess the impact of the work they have done. So shifting from implementers to facilitators and enablers will really help to walk the talk, to be realistic. Yes.
Thank you so
That's
much, Christine, for these very tangible examples of where the shift needs to happen. Thank you. So initially we were planning to kind of bridge it from DHF Uganda to NUDIPU because those are kind of the intermediaries, but we had to reshuffle a bit. So now I am coming to David, and I have a question for you. How does NUDIPU ensure that INGOs engage not only with the umbrella, but also with the diverse grassroots and intersectional OPDs when entering the country?
Thank you very much, Susanna. I hope I am loud and clear.
Yes.
Thank you. And once again, I'm David Nangosi from NUDIP. As far as the question is concerned, I wish to first and foremost state that the effectiveness of the disability movement in a given country largely depends on the strength of the umbrella or umbrella organizations for persons with disabilities in that country. And because it is critical, I'll repeat. The effectiveness of the disability movement in any given country largely depends on the strength of the umbrella organization in that country and umbrella organizations for persons with disabilities in that country. And that being the case, I would like to offer perspectives on how INGOs, how NUDIPU can ensure that INGOs engage not only with the umbrella, but with the diverse groups and intersectional OPDs when entering the country. OPDs, first and foremost, at both the national and at the local level, they play a critical role when it comes to fostering the implementation and monitoring of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And it is on this basis that their noble role has been clearly provided for under Article 33, Clause 3 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So NUDIPU ensuring that INGOs engage not only with the umbrella, but with diverse groups and intersectional OPDs in my considered thinking, first and foremost, NUDIP should link these INGOs to the district unions of persons with disabilities. As far as Uganda's setting is concerned, we work in structures. We believe that change can be realized more by working in structures. And so as NUDIP, we have advocacy structures which comprise the district unions of persons with disabilities that are spread across the country. And so here we feel that NUDIP should link the INGOs to the district unions of persons with disabilities where programs are implemented, where program execution takes place, where the localization agenda takes place. That is one. And secondly, I also think that NUDIP should link the INGOs to the variety of the national OPDs that are registered with NUDIP. I think, and I have seen it happen. To realize change, you must be coordinated. And by being coordinated, you must work in a group which is organized. And currently, NUDIP has groups of persons with disabilities that have come together, and these have subscribed to NUDIP. So, that being the case, NUDIP should...
Oh no, it does look like we have...
Therefore,
oh, okay, it seems like the connection for David is breaking a little bit. Sorry, David, can you hear us?
Linked some of these OPDs to the INGOs. And for example, we have Association of Refugees with Disabilities, which is the national umbrella organization for refugees with disabilities. We started by building their capacity. And after believing in them, the next thing was to connect them to the various partners here and there for support. We continue to support them and we continue to connect them here and there. But that being put aside, we also feel that NUDIP linking these INGOs to the diverse groups and intersectional OPDs can also happen by subgranting to these diverse groups and these intersectional OPDs. Why should this be so? It is because some of these diverse groups of persons with disabilities and these intersectional OPDs, at times they will not be having the needed requirements to favorably compete in a particular call for proposal. They may not. So what NUDIP can do is can take lead and work together with these diverse groups of persons with disabilities and diverse groups and intersectional OPDs of persons with disabilities at the national and at the international level. At the moment, it is happening. We have a program which is funded by the Austrian government, and we are subgranting to the grassroots OPDs. I also submit that NUDIP should link INGOs to the National Council for Persons with Disability as well, because this is a government body which is responsible for monitoring disability inclusion at the national and at the grassroots levels. That is where the nexus happens. The government working very closely with the grassroots local OPDs to monitor service delivery towards persons with disabilities. And when all that is done, I feel then that NUDIP would have ensured that the INGOs are effectively engaging with the umbrella, but also with the diverse grassroots and intersectional OPDs when entering a given country. It will as well promote effective participation of these OPDs at the national and at the local level, and hence promoting the principle on effective participation as provided for under Article 3 of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Not only resources being utilized at the national level to have the national coverage, but making sure that the advocacy is championed at the national and at the local grassroots levels. That is my considered thinking.
Thank you very much, David. I do have to say we lost you for some 15 seconds, somewhere in between, but your key message has been communicated. So it wasn't for too long. And I think when you came back, we still got your main points very clearly. So thank you so much for your answer. And my next question goes to Apollo. You did mention, David, organizations of persons with disabilities who live in refugee settlements. So my next question does have a sub-question. Apollo, please, in the context of a global localization agenda, how can INGOs support genuine local ownership and trust? And could you mention some lessons from refugee response models that could inform broader development practice?
Okay, thanks, Susanna. in the context of humanitarian context, where all of us know that we have the refugees and the host communities coexisting in the same setting. And we also know that it's the context where we have many INGOs, especially in Uganda's context. That is one sector which has attracted the biggest number of INGOs in Uganda, bringing different development programs in the context of supporting refugees and the communities. And among the refugees, there are also refugees with disabilities, as all of us we know. But in the context of localization agenda, this is an agenda of us we know, which is being promoted in the humanitarian context, where I want to see the local organization taking on the mantle to be at the forefront implementing programs or forefront implementing interventions, which will affect them more, and leaving the NGOs maybe at the back seat. But back to the question, how can that be done? One of my approach, which I'm seeing, is most of us, the OPDs, we have structures. As someone mentions, we are membership organizations. Each of us here, we have members, and these members are in the different diversities. And each of us who are in this panelist, apart from maybe DHF, we have structures on the ground. And also these structures are rooted within those districts who are refugees, camps are refugee settlements are. So if you are to have a very practical agenda, one, you need to work with OPDs who have structures on the ground, because through structures, that's where you find members. And through members, that's when you come to know that these are our needs as persons with disabilities. You cannot work with an organization like UNAPID without working with my individual members on the ground, the real person with physical disabilities. So we need to work with organizations of persons with disabilities and their structures, so that you really get to know the needs of real person with disability in that context. Otherwise, if you work with an organization like UNAPID without involving my structures, you're likely to see that I may give you good ideas as Apollo from my professional point of view, but not necessarily mean that my good ideas, me who is at the center, reflects the very good ideas of a real person who is in the refugee context. So it's very important to work with the structures if you want a very good location agenda. And we try to do that we have structures in areas that we're working in a rural refugee settlement as per now as the organization. And we are trying to establish structures on the ground, which are composed of our members, and we work directly with them to see what are their needs, what are the good approaches, what is practical, what is not practical. That is one of them. Secondly, a good location agenda can best be achieved if you also build the capacity of OPDs. We recognize that these many INGOs have superficial capacities, expertise from countries they come from, exposure from different countries of the world, which not necessarily don't have as OPDs in Uganda. I may be in Uganda as Apollo, within maybe I may not have moved even beyond the boundaries of Uganda, maybe. But you find an NGO comes to work with you. He has worked in Nicaragua, he has worked in Europe, he has worked in Germany, he has worked in Zambia, and he has exposed to a diversity of information and knowledge, which I may not have as an OPD in the Americas. So how do you work with me very well in the localization agenda? Build my capacity where I think I have gaps in an equitable manner, not like you're trying to control, but build my capacity where I see I have gaps, areas of advocacy, and areas of maybe implementation or systems, so that I can effectively be at level like another organization. Why not build my capacity? If I have capacity gaps and issues of financial management, which is a very key component of these NGOs, terms of local agenda, let me make capacity in financial management. Give me systems or which are relevant to my effective performance that I'm able to perform in that context for refugees as equal as others, that I don't have some gaps which may render me ineffective or inappropriate in the particular context. That is true. The third point of it is, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, is the co-creation agenda. It's very important in the co-creation agenda. Co-create, let's work together. If we are going to have a good co-creation agenda in refugee context, refugees have diversity of people. They come from different countries of the world. They can come from Sudan, they can come from Rwanda, they can come from Kenya. They have diversity in tribes, diversity in nationalities, diversity in languages. There are quite many and come from different kind of backgrounds. So when you are going to have a very localization agenda, why don't you co-create? We'll bring ourselves together with these refugees and sit on the same table and see what can we do for these refugees with disabilities in this context. What can work out well for refugees from Rwanda may not necessarily work out for refugees in South Sudan. What can work for refugees who are speaking English may not necessarily the same as those speaking local languages. You need to have that diversity in mind, just like the first presenter mentioned, that you are able to come together, understand diversities, plan together, co-create, and share ideas that can work out best for that context of the people you're going to serve. That is good because you avoid instances of superiority, but also you create an environment which is very practical on the ground, and also create an environment which is very relevant on particular people you're going to serve. So it's very important to co-create. And many partners, I think, that are working up these days that they have realized that your security complex as an NGO no longer work these days because you need to have the knowledge of local context, which we, the NGOs on the ground, we have. Yeah. And they have embraced, begin to embrace that kind of cooperation and working together as the equal partners, if it more good location agenda, put us in the lead as a local organization person with disabilities. The other point of it is the budgeting. Something about, I think it's Farouk, when we bring about money. Money is very key. And in location agenda, if you don't address the issue of money, I know you can be hot soap sometimes because money drives everything. But if you're going to have a very good location agenda of involving OPDs in the lead, if you're an NGO have billions of money, you need to know, you need to remove the security complex and budget together. And we have this thousands of dollars you're bringing in this envelope. And this is how do we use it? How do we budget together equitably? Who does what? What's possible to do together? Let's do individual joint activities together as an OPD and NGO in that context. Give us roles to lead what we think we have expertise. Because it does not make sense for NGO to lead an area where I know a local NGO is the best expert into that. Yes. What are you going to present? If I have expertise in issues of physical disability, for instance, why do you want to present that when I'm here? So that brings a lot that recognizing expertise also goes hand in hand with money. How do you have effective planning, effective budgeting that you do what is best for you, and what is can budget and as a budget, and then you have equal and the equal share for the finances in a very equitable manner without having rubbing shoulders. I think those are some of the issues I can talk about in terms of maybe last one before I close.
Oh, sorry, we are quite over time with your answer, and we only have 8 minutes left.
Research. Last one is research. Most of the time is that these NGOs, they think that the best researchers. They don't put us in the need to research on things to affect us. If you're going to conduct a baseline or people who are concerning us in the contest, why don't you lead the research? Why do you want to bring an expert from Germany, from your country, to come and lead the research in the context where we live in? And leave us out who are the best knowledge, the best givers of information, and we think your expatriate to come from Germany can do a better research than me, who actually is the problem, to lead my own research thesis. So it's also very important. That's why sometimes you get data, which are not practical when you're leading the advocacy work in the context. So I think that's what I can start for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Apollo, for your passionate answer. I do have to say we have some technical issues. It looks like the live captioning is off and the Zoom is crashing in the background in the way. So we are trying to handle that and we really apologize. In the meantime, I do have 2 more questions left and 7 minutes. So I am turning my attention to Farouk. We have a question for you. How consistently do INGOs budget for and implement reasonable accommodations when collaborating with OPDs? And can you mention some best practices to support full inclusion of OPDs led by persons with different impairments, specific impairments, which do need reasonable accommodations?
Well, thank you so much. I think implementation of reasonable accommodation is mixed. Some organizations have, fully budgeted for reasonable accommodation, while others have deliberately not, despite the legal frameworks, that put this way that international NGOs should budget for, the reasonable accommodation. Well, we have at times, some reasonable accommodation is taken as a one-off. When organizing some activities, they may have a one-off for the sign language interpreters, the guides, but not as part of the real budget. Now, I want, as part of the recommendations, I want international organizations to make a reasonable accommodation unnamed and a mandatory budget line. Yeah. So I want reasonable accommodation to become part of the structure of the international organizations. That's one way it can be, adopted and respected. And reasonable accommodation should be taken, that cost should be taken as a cost for participation, not necessarily the charity. Because if you're dealing with a person with, for example, some with cerebral palsy, they need guides to participate. Yeah. So it shouldn't be really, it should be seen as a necessity for someone to engage, not necessarily a charity. And the other issue I will look at in the interest of time, during budgeting processes, some money should be set aside for core cost. That would help some OPDs to maybe, for example, for vision impairments, for an officer to get JAWS, or to plan for a guide, So there should be some amount of money that should be always set aside to cater for some of the reasonable accommodations. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fark, for keeping it short and sweet. I can imagine you are a bit pressed with time to provide your answer. So we do have 4 minutes left, and a last question for Kristin. Please, Kristin, your organization has been a member of the Make Way program, and together with other organizations, you developed a toolkit focused on intersectionality and equity. Now, how did the principles of intersectionality and equity shape the collaboration process itself? And did working with these concepts lead to a more equitable and inclusive partnership amongst the organizations that were involved?
Yeah, I must say that the Make Way program was internationally designed around intersectionality and equity. And these principles shaped not only the toolkit content, but also how the collaboration functioned was really intersectional. Like the principle of intersectionality and equity during the implementation of the collaboration was implemented. One, there was recognition of unequal power dynamics. Organizations openly acknowledged the differences in size, funding, power, visibility, and technical capacity. So that was very important, that that transparency allowed partners, including USPINA, to engage on equal footing with no partner assumed to be the expert or a default leader. Yes, USPINA that represented the disability category in that partnership, it was looked at or treated as an expert, in a way that in that program, they did not look at only systems. They did not look at the academic expertise, but only you knowing how to ensure that the underrepresented persons are actively participating in the program was equally rated as an expertise. In most cases, why some local partners are being left out, it's because that the donors, the funders, they have it in mind that those big partners or local actors with big systems and everything, they're the only ones that have expertise. So their expertise in most cases is rated at a higher level. But again, they don't look at these other partners that who are good at doing better when it reaches at implementing work on the ground. Therefore, during the Makeway, all those expertise were brought on board and were equally rated and really accepted and acknowledged. So such differences being acknowledged was very good for the success of the program. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It really sounds like a wonderful process that you have gone through. I wish there was a guideline to the process of the Makeway program. But yes, our time is up officially. We do actually have one question that we would like to ask each and every panelist. It's a bit of a fire round. So I really want you to keep it short and sweet. 1 minute per answer. Just bring out, the most powerful answer you can come up with, because my question is if you can give us one actionable example of a best practice that the audience can take to work from tomorrow to ensure that OPD and INGO collaborations are more equitable. I am going to ask Miro to start first. Can you give us one actionable best practice?
Okay. It's quite interesting, and I quite remember sharing quite best things that you can work on. To my experience of the 15 years that I've worked in area of disability and also working with the mainstream organizations of persons with disability, like World Vision, Save the Children, and others, one of the best practice I've seen is that it's not really very important to set aside a particular program for persons with disability. The most important thing is to make sure that the program you are working on as an intermediary or as a mainstream organization is embracing inclusion. We have what we call an inclusion house. You look at persons with disability as human beings, you power them, they participate, and then their voices will be heard. So as you're building a house, if you look at groups of persons with disability as a charity that you are helping them because they have a disability, then you're not helping at all. So the most important thing is that look at persons with disability as human beings that you feel they're bringing something on the table when you are working as an intermediary, and don't put them aside in a special way. They are not special, so consider them as two. The second thing is that not hiring a person with disability in an organization makes you that person, you represent all persons with disability. You need to empower even all your staff to be disability inclusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Only share one example because you might be stealing an example from someone else. So yes, next, maybe Apollo, can you share your one example of best practice that people can take to work tomorrow?
To me, I will still re-echo and I will still emphasize from my experience that one of the best practice of equitable collaboration is the co-creation. To me, it has worked for us as an organization because it gives you room to share and understand each other's context on an equal level and design things together without any bias, but agreeing on what can work, what can't work out. To me, it's the best one I've seen so far, which has worked for us, and we still embrace it.
Thank you.
As simple as that.
Thank you very much. And now we're making it more difficult for the ones who follow. But now I will ask Farouk to share his best practice example.
Thank you so much. I think international NGOs should look at local OPDs as long-term partners, not giving them one-off grants. In that they will get a lot of time to work closely with the partners and build their capacities. You know, if you invest some time in establishing the capacity of the partner, that partner will become reliable and will deliver to your expectations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this example. Next, who we haven't heard from yet is David. David, are you here with us? Because your camera is off. Yes, can you share one best practice example that people can take to work tomorrow?
In my considered opinion, I would like to side with Kiza. Continuous capacity enhancement is very critical towards driving us to continuous improvement. The various OPDs at the national and at the grassroots levels are at various levels. They are at various levels in areas of governance. They are at various levels in areas of financial accountability. They are at various levels when it comes to systems. They are at various levels when it comes to policy environment. Therefore, capacity enhancement in various areas is very critical towards strengthening OPDs at the national and other grassroots levels. And this, in my opinion, should be the way to go to enable OPDs get to work better. That's in my take.
Thank you very much, David. Unfortunately, it looks like we have lost Christine. I'm trying to find her in the list of panelists, but I don't see her anymore. So maybe she had some troubles with her connection, which means we have finalized at least the panel discussion with the questions which were preset. And now we are going to look at the questions which we have received from the audience, which is very exciting. And I do encourage, any of the panelists, if you feel like this is a question that you can answer, then please go for it, volunteer. Otherwise, I will have to assign, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the teacher here. So let me just quickly scroll through quickly. I do see a question here from Nadia. She posed 2 questions. So maybe we can just look at the second question. How can local expertise or knowledge shift the power under equity in development cooperation? So we are looking at local expertise and knowledge, and how can that help to shift the power? I believe this is something that we have addressed already, but is there maybe something you would like to add or restate to this point?
You gonna come again with the question?
Yes, how can local expertise or knowledge shift the power under equity in development cooperation? So maybe we can restate it as how can local OPDs really, advocate for themselves and say, we have the knowledge, we have the expertise. Are there any tools they can use, or is it only their word that has to be trusted in a way?
To me, if I can come in first, is one way our local expertise and knowledge can shift the powers is the lived experience we have as the organizations or persons or as persons in particular, because that lived experience is already power that we talk from experience, we talk from what we believe in and what we go through. And that alone, if I put on the table, discuss on an INGO, if we are going into a partnership, they're able to understand who we are. We're able to understand the diversity within ourselves. And how best can you work with us? If you have come with your spirit complex as an INGO, when you listen to us, a local organization, with what we go through as persons' abilities, as OPDs, I think that alone changes the perception of that INGO. And that alone shifts the powers. Come to understand, okay, this is what I thought at first, but now I've come to understand I was wrong. Maybe you did better this way. Maybe that's one aspect I can give you in that context. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this answer. I do see that some of the questions which are being asked in the chat have already kind of been answered as the conversation has progressed. But there is this interesting question here by, oh, let me scroll, Harvey. He or she posed two questions, but I'm gonna pick the second one. It's quite long, so please listen. Given the complexity of intersectionality, there's gender, there's poverty, there's disability type within the community of OPDs, how can the governance structures of OPD INGO partnerships be mandated to prioritize and ensure that the voices of the unique needs of the most marginalized, oftentimes those are women, rural persons with intellectual disabilities, maybe deafblind people. How can you within those governance structures ensure that really the voices of the most marginalized are used to drive the strategic decision making? Anything comes to mind with this question? It's a very good question.
I think if I try to attempt it, is one way
Sure.
is to involve them in programming, because these voices which are marginalized, once they don't really participate in giving their voices in what is being planned at program or activity level, then their voice will be lost. But the one way is to ensure those voices are involved in the planning process of whatever we do. They're not compressed, but they're empowered to speak out to what they think is best, what they think is relevant that context. To me, that can also be one way of raising that institutionality.
Thank you.
Maybe just to,
yeah, please.
Maybe just to add on, it's really good to make sure that at the governance level, there is always a slot for those very marginalized categories. For example, you should have the youth represented, or any other marginalized. We have to empower them first before they can help into that intersectionality. Thank you.
Thank you, Farouk. David?
As far as I am concerned, I approach that largely at around 3 levels. The first level is on financial empowerment. The second level, of course, that addresses poverty. I have lived examples in Uganda whereby people with, especially the deafblind, people with complexities, given those various complexities, the deafblind, those with the severe disabilities, they are left at the periphery of service delivery, including in the various socio-economic empowerment programs. Therefore, financial empowerment through deliberate effort to target them would be very critical. And then the second one relates to capacity building. Of course, their capacity needs to be built or enhanced so that they can effectively participate. But lastly, which could also be the first, is that which Mr. Mukasa just talked about, and that is meaningful involvement. Meaningful involvement is very critical because oftentimes these are left out. So if we make effort, if we make a deliberate effort to meaningfully engage them in the various programs, in the various activities, in matters that concern them, in policy formulation and all that, then we would be making a great effort towards not leaving them behind, but living to the realities of Article 3 of the CRPD on effective participation, but also living directly towards Theme 1 of the 2025 Global Disability Summit commitments, or nothing about us without us.
Thank you very much, David. for your contribution. I see Kristen's hand is up. Kristen, we cannot see you, but it's okay. As long as we can hear you, it's fine. Can you please speak?
Yes, as we conclude, I would really request that as partners, mostly the international NGOs, let's walk the talk of leaving no one behind. And you find that most of the partners who come on board to support, really they do not take part to monitor or to analyze, really have the underrepresented group been brought on board. I'll use our example as persons with cerebral palsy. I'm telling you, if you go across all the funded organizations, very, very less persons with cerebral palsy and other marginalized disabilities are the least to benefit from the program. Therefore, I say that when you empower other disability categories and you leave others behind, meaning you are not walking the talk of leave no one behind. One side will be empowered and then the other one will be left behind. Really, it's not fair. Let's try to balance. And even when it comes to granting of funding, can we really put into considerations of those underrepresented categories? Because they exist and they have the structures, but very few people or donors that come on board to support their programs to empower them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristen, and everyone. These were very great contributions to this question. I do have to say, from I did used to work in the field of diversity and inclusion, and we always used to say that if you do design for the most marginalized groups, you inherently include everyone else. So really being intentional about designing for the most marginalized, keeping that in mind, making sure that they are at the table when decisions are being made. That's how you can ensure that the different intersectionalities and the most marginalized voices are heard. We have received some other questions in the chat and in the Q&A, and I have to say, these are some heavy questions. And so what I would suggest, with only 4 minutes of the session left, is that we are going to take these questions and use them for the next session, which means that, yes, another session of this OPD Dialogue Series is coming up. And with only a few minutes left, I would like to thank you all so much for joining us for this session. I give a big thanks to our speakers, Frederick Oko, Chisom Odeze, Michael Miro, David Nangosi, Apollo Mukasa, Kristen Kirungi, and Farouk Kiza. Thank you for your thoughtful insights, your honesty, and the practical reflections that you shared with us today. And big thank you to everyone in the audience and for your active participation, for the rich questions in the chat. They are really a proper nuts to crack, so we will take it on next time. Thank you for staying engaged throughout the session. And as mentioned earlier, the session has been recorded, and the link along with the slides and the transcript will be shared with you, all the registered participants, shortly after the event. And before we close, I'm happy to share that, yes, this is the first session from the OPD Dialogues for Change series. In the next webinar, we will continue discussing, these different topics to empower OPDs to take their rightful place in the decision making, which should be equitable and inclusive. And the next webinar will take place in the first quarter of 2026. So we hope you will join us again. More information will be shared in the beginning of 2026. And on behalf of the IDDC Task Group on OPD Partnership, thank you once again for being with us today. We wish you a lovely rest of the day and a wonderful International Day of Persons with Disabilities tomorrow. And we look forward to seeing you again at the next dialogue. So thank you all very much for joining us, and have a nice day.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Salongo, komyewo.